Guys, this is our last video of the 2019-2020 7th grade school year, and that's super duper exciting / crazy at the same time. So we're on page 76, and we're learning about cube roots today, 8EE 1.2. And I drew a cube for our first example. So we drew a square for square roots, and now we're doing cube roots. And you guys know cubed is when there's an exponent of 3. So now cubed roots, we're going to have the radical with a 3 out front. So we're given a cube, and we know that the volume is 27 inches cubed. So volume, length times width times height. If it's a cube, all the side lengths are the same. So we can say side, oops, I did a Spanish. Oh my goodness, a cursive S. Side by side by side. So side times side times side. So what number, when you do it times itself 3 times, is 27? Okay, so side, so volume, side times side times side equals 27 inches cubed. What number times itself? So 3 times 3 times 3. 3 times 3 is 9. 9 times 3 is 27. So you could guess and check. The more advanced way that you're going to learn, so side by side times side, that's side to the third, or side cubed, equals 27 inches cubed. So in the last video, we took the square root of each side because it was area, it was squared. Now we're going to take the cube root of each side. So you write a little 3 out front. So actually, there's an invisible for square root. All of these have an invisible too. We just don't write it. If you don't write it, it's assumed. Just like it's assumed that there's the number 1 in front of a variable. So, but for cube root, you can't just assume it. You have to write the little 3. So, a cube root, so the radical with the cube and the exponent of 3 cancel each other out and give us s. So, you might already know that it's 3, but if you don't know, you can check it using a calculator. So you type in the radicand, the number underneath the radical, 27, and we don't use this button because this is square root. So there's a little green message above this button. Let me zoom in so you can see it. So this is a radical with a y under it, and then a little x out front. So that y is the 27, it's the number that we're taking the cube root of, and the x, we're going to have to put a 3. So you push that, and you type 3, because we're doing the cube root. What number times itself 3 times? Wait, I did that wrong. I forgot to push second. Okay, so you type in 27, second green, second that to get the green, and then type 3. And it's 3. So 3 inches, because cube root cancels out the cubed. So the side length is 3 inches for each side. 3 times 3 times 3. Now, if you're on your phone calculator, let me pull mine up. Okay, so you have to turn it sideways again. And then it's that button right there that has the little 3 out front. So 27, and then you push it, 3. Alright, so let's do one more like that. We have another cube, so let's draw our cube. Alright, so this time it has a volume of 729 feet cubed. 729 feet cubed. So we know that volume for a cube, or for any prism, is length times width times height. But when it's a cube, every side length is the same. So side times side times side, side times side times side, or side cubed, because we're timesing it by itself 3 times, equals 729 feet cubed. So you could guess and check what number times itself 3 times equals 729. That's going to take a long time. So what you do is you take the cube root, not the square root, the cube root, because it's cubed. The cube root, the exponent's a 3, so you have to take the cube root of each side. So the radical with the 3, the cube root, and the exponent of 3 cancel out, and it just leaves us with the s, side length. And now we have to do it to the other side. So 729, second this button, 3 because it's cube root, equals 9. So 9 times 9 times 9 equals 729 feet. If you're using your phone calculator, 729, and it's right under x cubed, 9. So, cube root. The cube root the cube root of a number, why am I so zoomed in? Oh, because the calculator. Okay. The cube root of a number is a number, cool, why does that happen? Is a number that when multiplied by itself and then multiplied by itself again, because it's multiplied by itself 3 times. So it's the cube root of a number is a number that when multiplied by itself and multiplied by itself again equals the given number. I don't really like the definitions of cube and square root. Equals the given number. Okay, so for example, the cube root, so you put cube root of 8. So what's the cube root of 8? Well, what number times itself 3 times is 8? 2. So 2. Because it's 2 times 2 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. Okay, so now we're just going to do some practice problems. And then we're done. It's crazy. So crazy. I never expected my first year to end like this. Oh my goodness. Okay, so basically, example A. So find the cube root of 64. So that's how you write it. Cube root of 64. So what number times itself again equals 64? You might know it. If not, use the calculator. 64, second this button, 3 for cube root, and it's 4. I just want to play around with something. 64 to the 6 powers 2. So 2 times 2 times 2 times itself 6 times. Okay, that's just the 6th root of 64 is 2. That's cool. Okay, so now, what if we have, though, the cube root of negative 64? So, what number times itself 3 times equals 4? Well, let's look at this. Negative 4, because we knew the cube root of 64 is 4, so let's see. Negative 4 times negative 4 times negative 4. Negative times negative, positive 16. So a positive 16 times by a negative 4 equals negative 64. So for cube roots, you can have a negative answer. And we can check it in the calculator. So we're going to have 64 negative, and then we do the cube root, negative 4. So you got to pay attention. So if it's a cube root, or there's, because you'll be getting into roots that have bigger numbers out here. If it's an odd number, you can have a negative number under here, and the answer will be negative. But let's look at something. What if we had, so if it's written like this, that means square root. There's an invisible 2 that you just assume is out there if they don't write a number. What's the square root of 64? Square root. It's 8. 8 times 8 is 64. Okay. So, but what if it said the square root of negative 64? Then what? So there's not a number written out front. There's an invisible 2 for square. Well, what do you think is going to happen? What number times itself is negative 64? Maybe you said negative 8, but negative 8 times negative 8 is positive 64. No number times itself, times exactly its identical self, is negative. So look what happens when we type this in the calculator. 64 negative, square root, error. Because you can't take the square root of a negative number. You'll learn something next year with a little like lowercase cursive I, but we're not going to get into that now. So you need to know you can't take the square root of a negative number, but you can take the cube root. Because that's what number times itself 3 times, which you can have a negative then. Okay, let's do 3 more examples. So practice finding the cube root of 729. So use your phone calculator or your calculator. Find the cube root of 729. So if it says find the cube root, this is what it means. So 729 cube root. So second this button, 3, 9. So that means 9 times 9 times 9 equals, why is there a decimal in there? 9 times 9 times, what? I messed up my calculator settings somehow. Goodness gracious, I'll figure that out. Okay. 9 times 9 times 9 equals 729. Find the cube root of 512 over 1,331. So if the instruction said find the cube root of 512 over 1,331, what would you do? Well, first you have to pay attention. It says cube root. So cube root, we put a 3 out front because 3 is cubed. Square root is when it's a 2. So cube root of 512 over 1,331. So just like we did when we were doing square roots, you have to break and separate the numerator and the denominator. I mean, you don't have to, it's just easier to envision it this way. Because you're not going to type this in your calculator and press cube root, or else it'll just give you a decimal. So find the cube root of the numerator and find the cube root of the denominator. So what's the cube root of 512? 8. And guys, make sure you're typing it in right, so don't just dumbly like trust your calculator. You can always check it. Times it by itself 3 times. Okay, what times itself 3 times is 1,331. So 1,331 second y of x, 3 for cube root, 11. So the cube root of 512ths over 1,331 is 8/11ths. All right, so the last example, find the cube root of 27 cubed. Find the cube root of 27 cubed. That's how you read this. Cube root of 27 cubed. So this is exactly the same as if it wrote it like this, or if it just didn't have parentheses. So the radical with the cube and the exponent of 3 cancel each other out, and you can prove that. So cube root of 27, well, we already know it's 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. So cube root of 27 is 3. And then we have 3 cubed. So 3 cubed, 3 to the 3rd is 27. So that just proves that the cube root and the exponent of 3 cancel each other out. So that rule is cube root of something cubed just equals the radicand, the number, the variable under the radical. And that's it, guys. So this week we did 0 and negative exponents, square roots, and cube roots. The Khan Academies, like I said, are much easier than the examples, but I think it's important for you still to see some of this. Other than that, we're not having a final exam over everything from this quarter or from this year. We're just gonna have stuff on cube roots, square roots, and the exponent rules. So from the past 2 weeks since the systems of equations quiz. But if you made it this far in the video, I just wanted to thank you for actually, taking ownership of your learning and watching the videos with me that I took the time to create. And I just appreciate you. I'm pretty bummed. Like, pretty bummed is an understatement that I couldn't say goodbye to you guys in person. But it's been an honor teaching you guys, and I love you. And I'm not going to say any more about it, or else I'm going to get emotional. But contact me if you need any help, if you have any questions. I'm here for you always, even if it's over the summer or next year. I love you guys.